Welcome to yet another episode on the 50th edition of International Film Festival of India from Goa. Well, as the festival is inching towards its closing ceremony, we have seen some of the glittering stars from the world arena on the IFFI's platform. Well, who are those stars and what they have to say? Let's take a look. French actor Isabelle Huppert received this year's Lifetime Achievement Award at IFFI 2019. With a career spanning almost 4 decades, she worked in more than 100 movies and has received many awards, including 2 Cannes trophies for Best Actor.
Faut que tu viennes m'ouvrir ma porte, je peux pas toute seule.
It's a great honor and it's a great pleasure. This is my first time in India and I'm very happy to be here in Goa and to have received this lifetime achievement. Well, the masterclass was a very good experience. First of all, there were lots of people and the questions were really interesting, and I felt like I was very close to the audience, and the audience was very close to me, and it was really nice, really nice.
Tu pirates les ordinateurs perso de tous les employés.
C'est grave comme infraction. Tu mets ton nez dans les affaires des autres, tu tombes sur les trucs pas nets. Hein.
Je porterai aucun jugement. Vous pensez peut-être même pas vous en tirer après ce que vous m'avez fait.
It's a full house, it just started, so I cannot tell you about how it was received, but ever since I've been here, I was, well, maybe not surprised, but it was very nice to hear that most of the people here had seen The Piano Teacher and Elle, and these are the 2 movies that come back regularly from people, so I understand both of those movies have been seen here in this country.
Dear Ila, things are never as bad as they seem.
Well, I haven't seen many Indian films, I have to say, in my life. I've seen a very good Indian film that a lot of people have seen in France, and that was Lunchbox by Ritesh Patra, and that was a really good one. And remember another one I saw called Labor of Love, and that was a really nice film. I wish in the future we'll get more and more Indian films in my country. It's very difficult to anticipate. I don't know. I'm always open to surprises, to good surprises. I think an actress' journey is made of more unexpected events than something that you can anticipate. This is my state of mind right now.
The movie 7 Last Words is a part of this year's international competition of the 50th edition of International Film Festival of India. Of course, the movie is about the man who's facing his mortality. We have interacted with the director of the film, Kavya Nabashian. Well, the film personality across the world is coming to the 50th edition of the International Film Festival of India. Right now we have with us Kavit, who has a movie will be screened at the 50th edition here. So welcome to the IFFI 50th edition here. First of all, which movie is going to screen here? Tell us something about that.
The film is called The Seven Last Words, and it's based on the 7 last things that Jesus supposedly said as he was dying. And it's made by 7 different filmmakers from different backgrounds, different religions, and it's about these 7 words that are about abandonment, hope, resurrection, and how those words are actually universal and something that brings humanity together.
Have you ever been to IFFI, or this is the first time yours?
This is the first time at IFFI.
And how was the experience so far?
Well, I got here this morning after 30 hours on airplanes, so it's really great to finally be here, and it's a beautiful city, and people were being taken care of very well.
Have you seen Indian movies, or have got a chance to watch some of them, or probably follow some of the actors, heroines, heroes?
I mean, I don't know nearly as much as I wish I did, but there's obviously the Sajid Ray classics that I watched in film school and that I really enjoyed. I remember seeing Coolies as well, which was a really great movie, and there's another one I saw a few years ago that blew my mind. It was like 3 hours long and crazy and amazing dancing, but obviously there's a formula to Indian cinema, but there's a lot of beautiful variants within that formula, and I just love the expressive nature of it.
IFFI is a place where local meets global and global meets local here. Are you looking for any chance to have connect to the India or Indian film industry, or to work on any project, if you get any chance at all?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would love to, and in particular, I really love Kathakali dancing, and like the whole Kerala culture is really interesting to me. So at some point, I'd really like to make a film that takes place in Kerala or maybe Goa, who knows? But yeah, I'm really interested in the very highly expressive dance and music of India.
Exactly. Well, that's pleasure words that you said. Thank you for talking to us. Thank you, Karat. Development is a necessary but not at the cost of environment and health. The other half, the Sri Lankan movie, is a part of the 50th edition of the IFFI. This talks about the repercussion of human needs on its environment and health. We interacted with the producer of this film.
There's a special section in IFFI 2019, Soul of Asia, which is showing the best of films which are made in Asia. So we have with us a filmmaker from Sri Lanka, Reverend Subodhi. Welcome to DD India, sir. First of all, we want to ask you about your experience at IFFI. This is the Golden Jubilee edition, 50 years of IFFI. First of all, your experience over here.
Yeah, actually that once we came here the first time to Goa, it was really amazing. We felt like Sri Lanka actually, because coconut trees and everything here, that we felt like the coastal area of Sri Lanka. So that IFFI is really wonderful event. We felt like it united all the cultures here. You know that from all around the world, many people which belongs to many ethnic groups and many continents, they come here and they share their ideas in an art of cinema. So it's a really wonderful experience, and I would like to say big thank to IFFI team, because they are working hard and they arrange everything perfectly. So we are really loving this.
Reverend is here with his film, The Other Half. Tell us about that.
Yeah, actually in our movie that we focused on an educational issue. That means normally that in the society, people and especially the teachers, they want to make the kids in their frame. They don't let kids to go out of the frame. For example, most of the parents, I think this problem also you are having in India too, and also many South Asian countries. Most of the parents and teachers, they want their kids to be a doctor or an engineer. Okay, no one needs to get their kids to a kind of like art or music or that kind of field. So in our movie, we try to discuss about the positive change, because we need a positive change of education of Sri Lanka to transform it from teacher-centered education system to a more organic student-centered education system. So in our movie, that our director is the scriptwriter actually. His name is Mr. Lalit Ratnayaka. So he had a really nice plot. This whole movie, it talks about how it affects to Yeah. Mine, and how that boy get rid from it, how he wins it with his enthusiasm of music. Yeah, yeah, and also that we are touching another one very sad story of one part of Sri Lanka as the background of this movie, because this Ruan Siri and his brother are living in that area. That area we call the North Central province of Sri Lanka. In that area, it's the kind of like, you know, that paddy fields and everything that we are having in Sri Lanka, that we people mainly they eat rice. As Indians, they grow lot of cultivations, so it's the cultivation hub of Sri Lanka. So by the decades, that multi-millionaire companies, they pump them that agrochemicals and pesticides which are not in much standard. So it contains arsenic, cadmium, mercury, heavy metals, glyphosate, that kind of very harmful elements. So now, by the decades of using this, as thinking that we are getting a much more harvest from our paddies, so then that those farmers now they are in a really tragic situation, because the groundwater of that area contaminated totally.
It's a very relevant issue, and these are the issues which whole of Asia is suffering right now and talking about. As the same problems which you're talking about, the same thing which happens in India also. Here also there's a talks of promoting organic farming, and also about talking about the children. Our children are also facing the same problem. There's a pressure of scoring, and then really they're not allowed to do what they really want to do. So do you think that cinema can really send this message across various people and various sections of society to really talk about these issues and give their children a chance?
Yeah, actually that this is our first film, so that we felt that people are getting the message, because cinema is a kind of an art, right? So art can transform the people's idea. It can change, it can lift the people's thinking patterns up. It can question one's own mind, because it's kind of a form of an art, right? So that we use that form of art of transforming the person's mind to a higher level on one issue. So we felt that from our audiences, because we are going to screen our movie on this December 16th in the theaters in Sri Lanka, but prior that we released this movie in Australia. Yeah, we screened it in many parts of Australia and also in New Zealand. So from the viewers, we got kind of like amazing responses that they are getting the message. And you know that the most happiest thing is that after watching this, that because we did this movie, produced this movie to support a charity to give people pure water, called Pure Water for All. All the profit of this movie goes to that project. So that after watching this movie, Australia and New Zealand, now more than 20 villages getting pure water, because we could able to establish reverse osmosis water purification plants of 20 villages so far from this movie.
Presented by Shraddha Films. Vishamabhaga, the other half.
In today's special conversation session, we have with us the former President of Academy, John Belly. We also have renowned editor, Karen Littleton, and we also have the international jury member, Ramesh Sippy. Let's hear what they have to say.
आज हमारे साथ जुड़ रहे हैं मिस्टर जॉन बेली, वर्ल्ड renowned cinematographer and the jury head of IFFI 2019 Golden Jubilee Edition. साथ ही हमारे साथ हैं विख्यात फिल्म एडिटर कैरल लिटलटन, और हमारे साथ हैं मशहूर निर्माता निर्देशक रमेश सिप्पी साहब और मशहूर अभिनेत्री किरण जुनेजा जी. So let's start, because the platform for IFFI 2019. My first question to you, Mr. John Belly, tell us about IFFI 2019, your experience till now. You are the head of jury of international competition. You're watching films day and night. How was the experience here, coming to Goa and being part of IFFI 2019?
I can't tell you what it's like in Goa because I've seen nothing except a screening room. You know, I mean, Ramesh and I have been for 10 hours a day, 11 hours a day. We've been looking at about 4 movies a day, and then we ride from the hotel to the screening room, and then from the screening room back to the hotel. Carol's seen a little bit more than I have. I haven't been to any of the other theaters, but I've been looking at the screening schedule, and it's very impressive how many films, how varied the films are in terms of the countries, the genre, the different genres, and that's really wonderful because a lot of film festivals have a very narrow focus, you know, and that's fine, but this is truly a world international film festival, and that's been very exciting to see films from so many different countries in so many different styles in 6 days or something is really remarkable.
That's an amazing lineup of films. If you talk about the canvas of films here in IFFI this year, is very remarkable because it's like 90 Indian premieres this time in IFFI 2019. Carol, if you talk about your experience at IFFI 2019, we had an Oscar retrospective here at IFFI 2019, and Casablanca was screened, and you had a conversation session also where people asked you questions. How was the experience here at IFFI 2019?
Oh, I've had a wonderful time. I haven't been able to be with these guys, but I've gone to movies on my own.
Yes.
And like John says, the variety is truly an international film festival. The people who are on the selection committee are to be commended. They've done a great job. And it's interesting, when you've gone to enough films, you begin to see that certain themes are emerging that are in common. And if I could just say, I saw Parasite, which is a South Korean film. Yeah. And then yesterday I saw Gully Boy, and although they're completely different, they deal with many of the same themes. So it was just really sort of fascinating to see how the themes of social justice and inequality of incomes is approached in both cases, and completely different. I thought Gully Boy was fantastic. It was really fun.
That's India's Oscar entry this year.
Yes, it is. It's the selection, yeah. And seeing it with an Indian audience was just perfect.
How was the Indian audience? They make noise at the
they enjoyed it. They enjoyed it. It was great entertainment, and they got the humor. They on all levels, they just enjoyed it. It was wonderful.
You have to understand that the Oscar-submitted films are seen in one of the 2 Academy theaters with a group of only Academy members. So they're not real, it's not a real audience. So for Carol to see, for any of us to see any Oscar-submitted film in the country of its origin with an audience that is enthusiastic and understands the film is a rare privilege. I really wish I had gone last night.
I think I had a true experience of movie watching in India.
I had a real Goa experience, I say. It was fantastic.
रमेश सर, आप बताइए, आप भी जूरी के सदस्य हैं और किस तरह की फिल्मों का कैनवस इस बार आप देख रहे हैं IFFI के मंच पर?
बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है. अलग-अलग देश से अलग-अलग कहानियां आ रही हैं, लेकिन जैसे कैरल ने कहा, थीम लगभग वही थीम्स हैं जो exploitation of women and how to deal with these problems, and some have done it in a very pleasant way, and some are dealing with the real issues. So it's nice to see all kinds of treatments for different for the same theme in a different way. Yes.
Okay. Kiran ma'am, your experience at IFFI 2019 is we have completed 50 years, and the other directors, the other makers, plus you are as an actor perspective, how do you see the journey of IFFI, the kind of films here and experience here at this 50th year?
Well, what I'm seeing more and more is that in a lot of films, women are getting very, very prominent roles. which was not so in the till the recent past. And also I'm seeing a lot of women themes, like Ramesh ji also said, and you also said, there are a lot of women themes, stories based on the women problems and their enlightenment and how they're coming out of it and all. So as a woman, as an actor, it's great to see great performances coming from some women, and some of the films I saw was amazing, and the characters were played so beautifully by these actresses. So I'm really looking at it as an actor and seeing the growth and seeing the opportunity that the actresses are getting today were not as much there, even maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So it's a great time for women to be.
Women are truly the lead characters. They're women's stories. The women are the stars, not the co-stars, not the supporting stars. They are the stars. I mean, just to take, two cases in point, the Canadian film Antigone, about a young girl. She really is the center of the movie. Also Cleo, another film, a number of the films. It's been really inspiring to see, after all of the gender politics that we've been having the last few years, that has caused so many polarized feelings, to actually see us starting to come out on the other side of that with actual films that are significant and important films that are realizing the potential of women roles.
Okay. Now we're taking questions from social media. There's a question for Carol on Instagram by Gitika, and said, at what moment you realize that your big part of life will be spent in the editing room?
Well, I've studied literature in France. I didn't start working in film until I met this guy. And so I was corrupted by film. And I think early on I realized that what John was doing was much more interesting than what I could have been doing had I stayed in university studies. So I thought, that's really much more interesting. I think I'll change tracks and start working in film. And early on, I went into a cutting room and it was all over. I like this place. I want to stay here.
Okay, there's a similar question for you, Carol. Say, how much freedom does a director give a cinematographer and an editor in the creative process of filmmaking, knowing that it is a collaborative work? How do you come to terms with different opinions?
Head to head. I think from the very beginning, when you have a good relationship with the director, it's all about making the best film possible. It's not about there's no scorecard. I had more decisions today than you had. No, I had more decisions yesterday than you had. No, it's not about keeping score. It's about putting our heads together and coming up with a third idea that's better than what either of us could have done on our own. Make the best movie we can.
Okay. So there's a question for you. You worked as a veteran documentary cameraman for A Brief History of Time and Michael Jordan to the max. Has there been a greater focus on documentaries today?
I think we are right now in a golden age of documentary filmmaking. Michael Moore was a pioneer with that in terms of making the documentaries mainstream for theatrical audiences, making them very accessible as opposed to a kind of educational or news type genre. So we are seeing more and more documentaries released the same way that fiction, theatrical films are released. What I have found so interesting in the last 15 years or so is how a fictional theatrical filmmaking and documentary filmmaking styles, the two styles, are starting to overlap and kind of fuse with one another. For instance, a lot of fictional theatrical films with actors and a screenplay try to achieve a level of reality by using documentary techniques. And a lot of documentary films are using recreation with actors and theatrical lighting and editing to expand the limits of the straight documentary style. And we have people like Errol Morris, who started very controversially in the early 1990s using that style. And now it's become part of the normal grammar that we use. Nobody challenges anymore recreation in documentaries. And you know, you look at some of these documentaries and they look just like fictional feature films. You know, so it's interesting. There's a kind of a fusion that's happening. And so with a lot of cinematographers, a lot of it started in documentaries. You know, I started in documentaries. My friend Roger Deacon started in documentaries. Many of us, and we have our heart is still very much in documentaries.
Lots of Indian directors, ace directors also started their career in documentaries like Kabir Khan and other ace directors. Ramesh sir, ये आपके लिए सवाल है दीक्षा का. You have been so many movies from across the countries, industries. किस तरह से अब भारतीय सिनेमा जो बदलाव आ रहा है उसको आप देखते हैं?
बदलाव तो आना भी चाहिए. बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है. हमने जब शोले बनाई तो तब भी एक बदलाव हुआ. तो अच्छा है कि आजकल इतने यंग मूवी मेकर्स जो आज आ रहे हैं वो नई आइडियाज के साथ आएं और नए तरीके से फिल्में बनाएं.
A very interesting question to Carol. You have a wonderful talent for editing. Why don't you open an editing school or organization in India?
There's one thing about editing is quite a different thing to teach editing. So
there's one more who's asking how to sharpen editing skills apart from reading, watching films and movies. How he can sharpen his editing skills?
I think the best thing is just to do it again and again and again. Editing is like writing. You get better at it as you do it again and again.
There's a question for you, John. Mr. John Bailey, how do you see challenges and difficulties in your role in time of web series? With so many mediums coming out, so do you think it's challenging? You have to work more, or reinventing yourself to adapt to the new challenges?
The new technology? You mean like new equipment?
And the web series, new mediums, like you have 3 hours to work in a film, but web series are shorter, and there's time constraints, all those things.
Well, you know, every generation has to experience changes in technology. I mean, there's nothing that was more cataclysmic to the motion picture industry than the precipitous change from silent to sound cinema. And if you really study the sophistication of the late silent era and how glorious and complete those films were, and how awkward the first few years of sound films were, you understand that the revolutionary change that had to happen creatively to use the technology. And so there's always that challenge. And you know, people speak about the evolution toward digital technology as though it's something that's never happened before. Every generation faces new technology and new challenges, whether it was the studio system having to face television, whether it was then later on dealing with pay TV or cable, now streaming and web thing. It's an opportunity as well as a challenge. What it allows you to do is find, you know, as Ramesh said, new ways of telling stories.
It was such a special session. Wow, what a session we had this time for the finale of Face to Face IFFI 2019. Thank you all of you for joining us in this special broadcast, and I'm honored to be here with all of you people.
Thank you.
और आज के हमारे इस खास एपिसोड में इतना ही स्पेशल इनिशिएटिव था न्यू मीडिया विंग की ओर से, और हम फिर लौटेंगे बहुत जल्द क्योंकि और बहुत ही खास अनुष्ठान के साथ. फिलहाल मुझे उनकी पूरी टीम को दीजिए इजाजत. नमस्कार.
And that's all we had in this special edition on the 50th edition of International Film Festival of India. We'll bring some of the important stories from the world of IFFI tomorrow with some latest updates. Till then, goodbye. You can also watch all the updates of the IFFI on the News On Air app. You can download the app on your mobile phone, and on just one click, you'll get all the updates from the world of IFFI. So, stay tuned.